Thank you all for coming tonight. My name is Jessica Bagwell. I am the Secretary-Treasurer of the local chapter of the Wyoming Archaeological Society, Pumpkin Buttes chapter. Tonight we are very lucky to have Dr. Stephen Howard from Eastern Wyoming College to speak for us. Dr. Howard is the Program Director for Archaeology and Anthropology at the Eastern Wyoming College. He has extensive experience in public archaeology, as well as field and lab archaeology. He has worked at archaeological sites in Wyoming, Colorado, Texas, Ohio, and New York, and has taken students to the UK to work on a Roman villa site. Dr. Howard has been teaching archaeology and anthropology for nearly 20 years. So tonight he is going to discuss his work at the Sunrise, Wyoming site and some of the ongoing research that he's doing there. So we can thank him for coming.
Jessica. I'd like to thank Pumpkin Buttes chapter of the Wyoming Archaeological Society for inviting me up here to talk to you guys. Are you guys all members, or are you guys public and everything too?
No public here.
No public. All right. As I was explaining when I first came here, I am the director of the Archaeology and Anthropology program at EWC, but I had to build it from scratch. So we've been operating for a couple of years, and we built a lab, and we're actually building a museum as well to teach students how to do exhibits and things like that. And I'll talk a little bit about some of that stuff in the context of what we're doing up at Sunrise, because we were invited up here as an initiative from the state that was a Wyoming Innovation Partnership. And our partner is SHAPS, which is the Sunrise Historic and Prehistoric Preservation Society. And we run a field school up there for them. They're doing some research at a mine site that's near Guernsey called Sunrise, where they found the oldest ochre mine, red ochre mine in North America, one of the oldest in the world. And we're doing a little bit of research there. Currently, at the mine itself, we are testing to figure out where we can put footers to put a permanent cover over it so that we can preserve it. But we also are looking for habitation sites and things like that for the people who actually mine the ochre at that site. The interesting thing about the site is that all of the materials that we had found up until this year dated to what we call the Paleo-Indian period, which many of you are probably familiar with. Some of the earliest folks that lived here in the Americas. Okay, this is kind of what Sunrise looks like. There's a town called Hartville that's nearby. It's got a nice little restaurant. That's about it, I think. This is the old mine area. You can see what they call the glory hole. This is where they did some glory hole mining for iron back in from the 1800s until the late 1800s until about 1980. That's when they closed that mine down. We also do have a couple of collapses where some of the underground mines had collapsed. So we kind of avoid those places. Don't do much archaeology there. But this place was a copper mine in the late 1870s. And they built a structure, and they did the copper mining. They smelted it down near Guernsey. It's a little town that was called Fairbanks. It no longer exists, but it's just north of Guernsey. And again, the iron mine operated from the 1880s all the way up until 1980 when it was shut down. Shortly after it was shut down, people started realizing that there was some important archaeology there. They were doing some reclamation work to try to alleviate some of the problems that were there because of when they abandoned the mine, they just kind of left everything in place. And so they were doing some bulldozing and stuff like that. And there was a guy named, I can't remember his first name, Powers, Wayne Powers. He was a coach at Sunrise High School. And in the 1930s, he started finding little projectile points and stuff along the railroad tracks that used to run across that area for the mine. And he didn't say anything about it because he wasn't really supposed to do that because it was in the active mining area. So he came for a reunion, I think it was in 1986. And he saw that they were doing this reclamation work, and he saw that the bulldozers were almost on top of his site where he was finding stuff. And so he called a bunch of people, including the Smithsonian and a few other people around the area. Does anyone know who the archaeologist might have been at that time? Prison. Of course, he was the archaeologist, right? He's always been the archaeologist, hasn't he? Right? So he called prison and he called, prison happened to be at the Smithsonian at the time, so he took some of those projectile points. Oh, this was a long time ago, actually. All right, I'm getting my story mixed up. In 1986, he went to the Smithsonian, showed these things to Friesen and Dennis, I'm just lost with names today. Stanford. Dennis Stanford. And, they were like, oh yeah, show me where they are. And he's like, oh, I don't really want to do that just now. So, no, it wasn't 1986. They weren't allowed to get back onto it after that. But in 1986, he contacted them again and said, hey, they're going to destroy this place. And so they came up and everyone got together and they said, hey, stop working. And it just happened to be that it was one day before they were going to actually bulldoze that whole area. So it was one day away from being totally destroyed. After that, the state decided that they would preserve the site, and so they paid for a big berm to be built up. The site is located actually on a little cliff that was right in this area right here. I can show you what that looks like. This is actually the bulldozers and everything getting ready. This is where the site is located. Now Powers, when he was collecting the points, he was collecting them down here. They've been eroding out of the site for years and years. And so they got up there. He kind of knew that they were coming from up there, and that's why he knew that they were going to be destroying that site. So they decided they're going to build a berm coming down from here to protect it. And that's what they did. All right. Flash forward to today. Back in 2019, let's go back to 2019 first. They did a little bit more research up there. They were gathering some equipment to dig a little trench into the actual mine itself to figure out, the extent of it and everything. And the current state archaeologist was associated with that, Spencer. And they found that, all of these projectile points are still dating to the Paleogene period. Okay, and these include projectile points that were identified as Clovis at the time. And Clovis, of course, was the presumed first group of people here in the Americas. So partnering with Shafts, they sort of did their research, paper was published, and now we're up to speed to where we come in as EWC. Shafts is sort of protecting the place. They are trying to build up money so that they can build a permanent structure over this. This is the current cover that protects the site. These are some of the tests that we did this year and last year to try to find the edges of the site so that we can figure out where to put those footers to protect the main site. The main site trench goes right about here, up through there. And it was kind of assumed that that was the extent of it. So we were going to be able to just go ahead and put a structure, maybe right about there. So we started doing this work, and we realized that there was a little more mining activity than we realized. Up until, like I said, this past summer, all of the things that we had found were Paleo-Indian. So we figured that the Paleo-Indian people mined at this site, and then after the Paleo-Indian periods, people found a better site, one that's more accessible. Because remember, this is up at the top of a 30-foot cliff. And the access is no better from the area above because there's a nice big hill there. Okay. And there is records of other ochre mines in the area. So one was destroyed when they were creating the Glory Hole pit. And this one apparently they had, no, this was the Chicago mine. The Chicago mine is another mining area that's on the other side of the hill. And when they were preparing that Chicago mine, they destroyed this little, what was described as a cave or a crevice, where they described bushel loads of artifacts coming out of. Okay. That one's been completely destroyed. So when we were digging this year, we found that the normal things that we expected to find, and normal in this case is, kind of special because it's all Paleo-Indian. So this is kind of amazing that this site has so many of these projectile points. We have well over 100 projectile points from the Paleo-Indian period, and they're all complete points. A few dings here and there. They have been used. They're not pristine. Okay, and that's something else we're looking into. But we brought up a field school. We started up a field school through EWC. We got our lab set up. We got everything set up, and our field school is certified by the Register of Professional Archaeologists. So we attract archaeology students from schools all over the country. And so we have 15 as a cap, and we got a couple of them here. One is from Vermont and the other one's from California. Our field school is open to Wyoming students first, and then we have other people who come in. We never have 15 Wyoming college students for archaeology, so we generally fill it up with the rest of those folks. Okay. Our intern this year was from UW. So we also have some other kinds of programs. We have a Volunteers for Peace program that works up there for us for 2 weeks. And these are international students that come in and lend a hand to us. They also lend a hand to SHAPS, so they do kind of odds and ends work that needs to be done around the area, painting and nailing and stuff like that. All right. These are some of the test pits that we had down in the valley. These test pits, we're looking for the habitation sites, the activity sites that are associated with the mining site. Remember, the mining site is up on the hill. So what we do is we take it down through, and we check out the different levels that we have there. Some of the levels that we have go back almost to the Paleo-Indian period for this year. Last year, we had a couple of pits open that actually went beyond that Paleo-Indian period when we got down to the lower levels. Okay. There are some flakes down there, but it's unclear if they are, older than Lucas or whatever. Okay. So the test pits that we're using today, we still haven't found anything that we could describe as a habitation site for these folks. Some of the stuff that we find, we think is probably coming down, being washed down into that little area from somewhere else. Unfortunately, this whole area was developed into a little village, actually quite a big village, almost 1,000 people there at one time. But we do have auger testing that will be going on in addition to our regular field school tests that we're doing to try to figure out where these habitations might be, hoping that they're not destroyed by the buildings, right? At least not all of them. All right. This is one of the projectile points that we found this year in what we call the John Boy site. That's the valley site. Any of the areas that we're looking at in the valley, we call the John Boy site. We also found a source for a unique chert type. We call it John Boy chert, for lack of a better term. It will be described more in detail once we get everything going with that. But these are giant nodules about like this big that were just down in the valley there. We're trying to figure out if they came down off the hills or what. We don't think they were brought there, but who knows? But this is one of the Paleo-Indian points fragments that we found down in the John Boy site. Powers 2, anytime people work up at Powers 2, they turn red because the whole thing is red ochre. Okay, you can see the pile; it's all red. This is an archaeologist who's visiting from India. We get a lot of international archaeologists that are interested in these projects, and he's all red too. So we had one from China by she's going to school in Japan. We also had a volunteer from Uruguay who came last year as well. So we have returners from all over the place. We have a lot of local volunteers as well. And again, what we're doing up there, we're not really doing any research testing, but we are collecting the data from the tests that we're doing to try to figure out where to put those footers. So when we realize that we're not at the edge, we move a little further away, and we try to figure out where that's going to be. All right. These are some of the projectile points that have been found or were found this year up at Powers 2. Yeah, you can see we have some of our Paleo-Indian points there. We've got a Goshen. We've got, I don't think we found any what we would consider sunrise points up here this year, but we do have some of those casts of those so you guys can see what they look like. Those are the ones that I mentioned before. We originally called Clovis, but upon further inspection of them, we realized that it's a different technology, just slightly different. They don't have fluting and they don't have the same kind of flaking pattern. Okay, but they look a lot like Clovis. And then we have this thing. Which is not Paleo-Indian. This is the very first non-Paleo-Indian point that's been found up on the hillside. Now, in the actual original pit, there's still no evidence of anything other than Paleo-Indian. This is up away from that pit in another little crevice that goes up the hillside. So now we have to consider the fact that there were people still mining that after the Paleo-Indian days. Okay. This point was found underneath all of those other points. Okay? But we know it's not older. We know it's probably an archaic point dating to about 7,000 or 8,000 years. So it's still early archaic, but it's not paleo. The thing about this site is these depositions aren't in good stratigraphic order. What these folks were doing is they were digging up red ochre. And they would come up and they would dig up some red ochre, and then they would leave some of these points apparently behind as an offering or as a thanks or whatever it was. And they would leave that there. They would go away. Somebody else would come up, dig up some ochre. They might dig up some of those points, but they knew that they were supposed to leave them there. And then they would leave their own there. And this is how we get hundreds of these points, like these. You know, those aren't bad looking points. All of these, most of them though still have use wear. So they're not dropping off pristine points to give as offerings. They're leaving used things behind there, right? So we're not really sure, you know, what the context of that is. We do know that it does appear that they are leaving them because they're taking something from that site. Okay, and this is the area where we found that stuff. Okay, you can see this is all very mixed up. Okay, a lot of red ochre, a lot of other things. Other kinds of artifacts we find up there are bone tools. We find stone tools like scrapers and things like that. We find some hammer stones. We find a lot of different kinds of tools up there besides these projectile points. So it could be that they're leaving some of those behind, or they're using them up there. Yeah. We do find some types of tools that look like they were used to dig with. Okay, we find some bone tools that look like they were used to dig with. We find some shaped stone tools that look like they were used to dig with as well. Upon further inspection of this particular pit, we were able to kind of detect, and you can kind of see it a little bit, not that great in this image, but there's a little line that comes down through here, and it kind of indicates that there is some disturbance. There's a hole dug within the other disturbed part, right? And the archaic projectile point was found in this little area over here. So it could be this is the pit where that was deposited when they were digging up there. And all of the other stuff could have been, actually one of them was over in this area. The other two were not really sure exactly where it was, but they could have been in the other disturbed part or just dug up and left there. Okay. In addition to what we're doing up at the Ochre Mine, we also have our field school students learning how to do stuff for CRM, Cultural Resource Management. So we have areas up on the uplands where we do a little bit of shovel testing on John Wood's property. Okay. So there's an entire, I think there's three little ridges up there that have never been tested. Okay. There is a ridge up there that does have stone circles on it. Okay, and part of that is on state property called the Sutton site. And this is sort of a landlocked parcel, but they're working with John Boyd to try to get some sort of access for the public because it is technically part of a Guernsey State Park system. Yeah. So eventually we might be able to just drive up and check out those stone rings anytime. Right? There are some of those stone rings on John Boyd's property. And so what I did was I had my students practice mapping. So they were mapping those stone circles, and then they would compare it to the earlier mapping of those stone circles to see how well they did. So this is all, this part is non-intrusive. The shovel testing wasn't obviously intrusive, but we did find a couple of sites that were never recorded. So it worked out for us. So we can get those recorded in the state records. In addition to those kinds of activities, we have some equipment that we can use to look underneath the ground. That's our radiometer. This is a machine that looks at magnetivity, like very, very minute magnetivity. In fact, it measures in something called nanoteslas. It's like 1,000th of a Tesla. Not the car, but the measurement of magnetivity. And so we create maps of features down below the ground before we ever have to dig. And so we had them practice over and over again, and then we compared all of the maps they came up with to see how well they did in their, because they have to figure out how to get their stride down and everything to make sure that they get good data. By the way, our field school, part of our field school experience is working with the public, because oftentimes, many of you know, archaeologists work with the public. And so when we have people coming up for different events, outreach events and stuff like that, we also have them showing what they've learned to those folks. So these are the Volunteers for Peace. When they were collecting scraps of iron for shafts to get them out of the way, to clean up a little part of the site. The VFP program is sponsored by SHAPS, and we provide them with the opportunity to do archaeology as well. So it's built as an archaeology work camp, is what it's called. So we usually get anywhere from 5 to, we had 11 at the highest number that we've had. So this one, the two hosts are from Texas, and this is one of them. This girl is from South Korea, Mexico. I don't know if you guys you know this guy? George Siemens. He's still there, still around. Anyway, this guy's from Mexico, this guy is from Colombia, and that guy's from Vietnam. Generally, we get a lot of people from Europe as well, but we didn't have anybody from Europe this summer. We'll probably have a few next year. All right. We also have events like Flint Nap-In events, and we have demonstrations. We do ad-level dart throwing and things like that as well. We do pottery demonstrations. We had a speaker that works with paleoethnobotany, looking at plants and animals, zooarchaeology as well. We also host a symposium of sorts. It's sort of like I guess it would be just a little meeting with some of our volunteers and some invited guests. Most of the invited guests that we have to speak with us usually stay for a week or two and help us dig as well. So that's where the guy from India came from, Parth. This is Ashley Lemke. She's from University of Wisconsin. She came out to dig with us to present some of her work. She works in underwater archaeology, in hunting structures and things like that. This is one of our students explaining what she's doing to some of the visitors at the site. And of course, those two visitors ended up being volunteers as well, so which often happens. And just to veer off course a little bit, I wanted to talk about our program down in UWC. This is our lab that we built. I don't have any pictures of the museum yet because it's in shambles right now. We're in the process of refurbishing some of the parts like the bathrooms and stuff like that. But the students in the museology course that we teach are currently working on exhibits there too. And we're in partnership with a bunch of local educational tourism places. Our first co-exhibit is going to be with Fort Laramie. They're going to do a little exhibit in one of the spaces. So that's what we've been up to there. And I brought some things to show you. I've got some past some of the stuff from Sunrise and also some of the teaching collections that we have at EWC that our students work with. We also invite all of you to come down. The summer program is what we call Summer at Sunrise. And basically we have it for about a month and a half, usually in June and July. And everybody's invited. You can come down and you can volunteer and you can, do all sorts of stuff. Go on tours, do whatever you want. Well, not whatever you want, but most of what you want. All right. Oh shoot, I forgot to change that. I used the template for that talk that I did at Washakie Museum. So anyway, I would like to thank not the Washakie Museum, but the Pumpkin Beans chapter for inviting me here. And these are all the folks that provide some of the funding and stuff like that for us. The museum is being funded through donations, so we don't have any public funding for that, but the state has been generous with the Wyoming Innovation Partnership to get us up and running as a program. So, and now I am available for any questions that you guys may have. Yeah.
What is UWC? Is that University of Wyoming at Casper?
Oh, no, it's an EWC,
Oh,
Eastern Wyoming College, right? Now, the thing about it is that we are affiliated with UW, and our program is particularly tied to the anthropology program there, because we provide 2 years of education, and then they provide the other 2 years for our students that want to transfer there. And we do encourage it because they do have a good program down there. The difference between us, or our 2-year program and other 2-year programs is if students go to University of Wyoming, their first introductory courses have a lot of people in them. And we have smaller class sizes. We cap it at 20. So they are able to, get personalized experience and stuff like that. And we have experiential learning. So like, for example, our archaeology, intro to archaeology course actually goes out, sets up grids. They go out, learn how to shell test, learn how to do the different kinds of things you need to do for archaeology. And they work in the lab. So they are able to work with the artifacts and stuff that we have. So they gain some experience that they wouldn't necessarily gain in the first 2 years of a big 4-year school. We're also currently working with Shadron. They're starting up a program over there, and they want to do a 2+2 with us. So we'll see how that works out. Yeah. Right. We are getting, it's interesting because we're a 2-year college, but we're drawing majors. So we have a couple of majors that came to our school specifically to do archaeology and do that archaeology program. We offer them a flexible degree. So it's not specifically like an archaeology or anthropology degree, it's a social science degree with an archaeology and anthropology focus, so that they can use it in whatever program they want to get when they go out. So if they do want to become an archaeologist, they got it. If they decide they don't want to become an archaeologist, they can use it for something else. So, any other questions? Yeah.
I came in a little bit late, but did you say that the site that you're working on now was actually like a mine site for a bigger village on the outside of it, or what?
Yeah, Sunrise was the name of the valley. It was actually named because one of the earlier people that went up there went up on top of one of the hills at sunrise and said, "Oh, that's really pretty. Let's call this place Sunrise." Anyway, again, it was a copper mine, and then it was an iron mine. And the iron mine was the profitable mine, and so that lasted for almost 100 years. And a village was built to support the mining employees, right? The company built a village. It was owned by Rockefeller. I don't remember which one. So I don't know. I don't think it was J.D. Rockefeller. It was somebody else. One of the Rockefellers owned this thing. And they had an issue with some mines down in Colorado. There was some labor issues and things like that, and there was a massacre that occurred. And so they were trying to do some PR work. And so he envisioned a model mining town that everyone could come to and say, "Oh, this is a good place to live." And Sunrise happened to be that model mining town. They built Wyoming's first YMCA there, which the building still stands. They're going to be turning it into like a museum and community center. And we actually have the bottom floor as a research center for EWC for our students to come up and do lab work and stuff like that. So yeah, it's we're working on that right now.
The mining is quit or they're not mining?
That's a good question. The company that was mining, Colorado Fuel and Iron, CF&I, they shut down all operations and sold everything off in 1980. It kind of languished. The state didn't really want it because there was a lot of cleanup work that had to be done, and eventually fell into private hands and the private owners up until, I think it was maybe 10 or 15 years ago. Didn't let anybody on there. Because people were going up and throwing rocks into the windows of the buildings and trashing everything and stealing stuff and whatever. So they tried keeping everybody out. And then a guy named John Boyd bought the property, and he wanted to mine up there. And so he set up Sunrise LLC, which is an operation that currently takes some of the tailings from the old mining operation. Tailings are the byproduct of mining. It's sort of like waste products that build kind of really big hills all over the place. Well, he takes some of that stuff because it still has iron in it, and he crushes it and he sells it to concrete companies and road-based companies and things like that. So it's still technically being mined. So yeah.
Does he block off the livestock from walking over all this stuff?
I don't think so. I think there's a fence up on the top, but there's livestock in there sometimes when I go up there. Yeah. We actually had elk up there, which is kind of unusual because we're kind of away from the mountains. But we had some up there this summer. Students, we were driving up there, and one of the students says, "What are those?" This was a student, one from Vermont, actually. She's like, "What are those?" And I said, "Huh, those are elk." What are they doing up here? So, but yeah, it's pretty cool.
So how long has it been since they discovered there's paleo artifacts at this location? And did the state come in and kind of slow down the mining and to protect the site, the integrity of the site?
The mining that's occurring is actually on the tailing hills, which are away from the mine. So yeah, the mine is actually protected pretty well. And SHAPS has the responsibility of keeping it protected. That's why we're trying to build a big cover over it. And because we're in partnership with SHAPS, we're committed to creating that cover and then creating interpretive signs and stuff for people to actually go up in there and check it out. Because right now, you guys remember this thing right here? That's the site. That's all you get to see. And in fact, this stuff isn't even there because that was our operation that we were looking for those piling places, right? So if you go up in there, you see a big white tarp. And we want to make that into something like a little destination where people can go up and read about this site and check things out and actually look at the area where it was mined and stuff like that. And have it protected under a big shelter. So.
Where did you say those bushels and bushels of artifacts were?
That was, let me see if I don't think my overview picture goes out that far. But there's another area that CF and I was preparing to mine. No, it doesn't quite. Oh, wait, I think I have another. Yeah, this is the other over here. This over here is the Chicago mine. Okay, they never actually started mining it. They prepared it to mine. They cut down to the ore body. The ore body is still exposed, but nobody ever mined it. This is one of the reasons why John actually wanted it, because he thought, well, maybe we could actually start, if the prices go up high enough, I'd be able to start mining iron again in there. Because this ore body is huge. The only reason they stopped doing it is because cheaper ore in other countries. So it wasn't profitable for them to continue, so they left it there. But there's a lot of iron in there still, quite a bit. So that's where the old, the other ochre mine was. It was located in this area here where they were preparing to mine. And when they went over there, they kind of cut it all out. So I don't know what happened to the artifacts. I couldn't tell you that. But apparently there were bushel loads of them. I think they often said bushel loads back then. I don't know if it was actually bushel loads. I'm not sure how big a bushel artifacts would be. So, no, potatoes are about that big. A bushel, something like that. Imagine that's what they were talking about.
All right, boxes on shelves. It's people's.
Hey, that's a lot of times they end up there. These are the sunrise points, by the way. Again, when we first saw them, they look kind of like clothes points, but they're really small. They're generally about this big. They don't have flutes. They do have some basal thinning though, that kind of reminds us of flutes. And then the flaking technique is just slightly different. So it could still be Clovis people, just making a specific point for a specific purpose that they then left behind at this site quite a bit. But we also find other things. We do have a couple of points that are actual Clovis points from there. And then we also have Midland and Goshen and actually several others. I can't even think of the names right now, but quite a few different kinds of points. So it's suggestive that this site was visited by people, from different places for a really long time. The dates that we get from the seriation of those points are from 9,000 to Clovis, 13,500, something like that. Okay. After, until this summer, 9,000 was the cutoff. Now the cutoff is more like 7,000 or 8,000 so far. So, the other question? Yes.
We should have some sort of event during the summer.
Yeah.
Do you know when that's going to be next year?
It's usually in June and July. So it's going to start right around the first or second week in June, and it'll end in late July.
So when's the big, any time is a good time to come?
Yeah, pretty much. When we have the field school going, we welcome people just to show up. Occasionally the gate will be closed, and that's when there's nobody really there. Because sometimes we take the students out to like Devil's Tower or the Snowies or someplace like that, because they're stuck up there for 6 weeks in an abandoned mining town, living in tents. So we have to be nice to them. So, but yeah, a lot of times you can do that. A lot of people just kind of drive up just to see if the gate is open. There are bigger events, like Shaps has a tour, their grand tour. I think they charge like $20 per person. And they give you the whole big shebang and they take you all over the place. And the people who used to live there come up and tell you about, hey, this is where so-and-so lived, and this is where so-and-so lived, and this is where we went to school, and this is what we did over here. We used to sled down this hill, et cetera, et cetera. So it's pretty fun. That one is in, I want to say it's the last weekend of June. Okay, so somewhere around there. Actually, if you're on Facebook or whatever, you can look for Sunrise. They have their website, the Shaps website, or Facebook page. They also have a website, and then we have a website as well. Just go through the EWC website and look for Anthropology and Archaeology. And we also have a Facebook page, and all of those places will announce when these things are going on. So, but it is in June and July. That's all I know. Somewhere in there, 6 weeks, right in there somewhere. Okay. All right, cool.
Why did they value the red ochre, and are there similar sites in North America?
There are some red ochre mines in other parts of North America that date to later periods. Ours is the oldest that's known. There is another one in Florida that's submerged, and they don't have really good dates for it, but it could date to around the same time period as ours. What did they use it for? Well, a lot of stuff. Okay, it's really good for painting. Okay, we do know that they used it for painting in rock shelters and caves. Okay, we do find red ochre pictographs in those places. They used it in, I hate using this word, but ceremonial things. We did find some, or they did find some up at La Pearl Mammoth site in a big, like, circular pattern, like on the ground, that looked almost like a little floor or something. We're really not sure what it was used for, but it falls under that category of unknown. So it's got to be ceremonial, right?
Using burial sites.
They do, yeah. A lot of different cultures. There's a peculiar thing about red ochre is that when you get it wet, actually different kinds of red ochre, it looks like blood. And so there was one time, I actually worked at a place called the Gillette site in Central Texas, and we were coming down on the bedrock, and we had water flowing through the site at that point. And I was excavating a little section, and all of a sudden there was a stream of what I thought was blood. And so I was like, oh shoot, what did I do? And I'm looking all over and I can't find it. And I was like, oh, I nicked a piece of red ochre. But it looked like I had cut myself. And I think that has something to do with it. I think that's one of the reasons that they use it for those types of ceremonial systems in burial contexts. We have found that different cultures sprinkle dead bodies with it. Different cultures will paint certain aspects of it, like artifacts that are put into the burials as well. We have several examples of artifacts that have red ochre basically smeared to it, so it looks like blood. In fact, when people found it, they thought it was blood, but it turns out it's red ochre. So yeah, there's a lot of different uses for it, and it's very valuable even today to Native American groups. We still get Native Americans coming to the site to collect samples of red ochre. We don't ask them what they're using it for, but sometimes they volunteer it, you know. Some of them just want to have it because it's part of their culture or whatever, but some people still use it for little ceremonies and stuff like that.
You can see petroglyphs in the grooves. It's like red in the bottom of that. Is that red ochre that they used in that, like a paint inside of it?
Probably, yeah. Yeah, I don't know what instance you're talking about, but yeah, this is something that they would have used it for. Pictographs are where they paint with it, And then the petroglyphs are where they carved into it, but they sometimes will smear those with red ochre as well, or charcoal or other kinds of things.
For some of the material you're finding there as left, is it local church or have you been able to trace some of the stuff that is left back to other areas of the country?
There are a few. There are a few examples of the city, and that would come up. There's a couple of places here in Wyoming that they would have gotten that. We haven't had it tested yet, but we can actually test obsidian to find out exactly where it came from. Chert is a little more difficult to do that with, but the vast majority of artifacts that we find at the site are local. Okay. There's a Hartville uplift chert that we find a lot of. Spanish digging stuff, yeah. But then we found that thing that we were calling John Boyd chert. They had started finding that a long time ago, and it was just something that nobody knew what it was. And then we found a bunch of these nodules of the stuff, and we know it's very, very local. So, yeah. Any other questions?
So do you think they use those slabs of chert to make some of those?
They did actually. Not one of those particular ones, but we do have some.
Just that was like one of the baseline things of use.
Yeah, this John Boyd chert stuff, yeah. Yeah, basically, like I said, it's big nodules of it, and it's down in the valley. So it's not coming out of the walls or anything. Apparently, at some point it did. And we're still looking for maybe where that came from, but we might not find that. Chert usually forms in context with limestone, and there's not much limestone. We do find some bands of it here and there, but it's the stuff that we find up there is mostly like schist, and all of the stuff that we find up there is kind of like mixed with iron. So schists and sandstone and some really cool banded rocks, like red and white. Those are really cool. I'm not even sure what kind of rock they are. All sorts of really cool geology up there. Okay, but yeah, we do find projectile points made of that John Boyd chert. In fact, we find them from different time periods too. Most of the sets that are up on top, where we were finding or where they found the earth rings, or not the earth rings, the stone rings. A lot of those are later time periods, and we do find John Boyd chert there too, in those later sites. The TP rings, or they call them TP rings, there's a lot of them up there. In fact, we found some early in the field school on a property that John Boyd showed us. That he said, oh yeah, go ahead and check in this field. Well, we were looking at the maps, and it turns out that's somebody else's field. So we're contacting those folks to see if we can get access to that, so we can map those stone rings, because they've never been mapped before. We can't find any evidence that they're being mapped yet. So we're going to try to do that next year. The ones that are up on the other part, the state, UW has mapped them over and over again. And the ones that are on John Boyd's property, we use to help our students learn how to map those kinds of things. So all that stuff up there is pretty much preserved. Yeah.
Were they in relationship to the mine?
Oh, yeah. Right here.
That was the area you were showing the other field work.
John Boyd's property comes up sort of like this, and then goes over this way. And we were doing our mapping over in here. The Sutton property is over in this area, and that's where the majority of those stone circles are. We were doing our shovel testing over on this hill over here, and then the other earth rings are in a little field right up here. But John Boyd's property cuts across it like this, and this part over here is somebody else's, so we have to get permission from them before we can actually map those out. So, unfortunately, they don't live around the local, so they're a little harder to track down than we thought they were going to be.
So what's the variety of dates and ages? I mean, carbon dates, fire rings and stuff to see.
The rings, the stone rings generally fall under the late prehistoric, or what do they call it out here? Late prehistoric is what we refer to as up until the contact period. I think they might call it similar name up here, right? Just the late. the late time period. This is like, we're looking at 500 years ago to 1,000 years ago, something like that. Okay. These would likely be associated with the historic known tribes of the area, whereas some of this other stuff over here is so far back that we're not really sure where the relationships are. We do know that they're all Native Americans, so they're related in that sense. Okay, but we do also know that the historic tribes moved around quite a bit because of the upheaval of the movement west of us in Europe. So I say us because I'm from England. Right, any other questions? Yeah.
If someone were to go during June or July, what kind of supplies would they need? Would they need to bring anything?
We have everything. So yeah, if you come and you want to try to volunteer, just sign up. We make you sign a waiver. But other than that, just bring some water. You know, we do have drinks and water and stuff. We have vending machines in the YMCA now. But yeah, bring plenty to drink because it does get hot in the summer, and it's pretty dry.
They recommend finding some lodging if they don't live near that area.
There are little motels and stuff in Guernsey. They're fairly inexpensive. Our field school students live in tents. You could ask John Voigt if you wanted to join them in their tent village and set up a tent for a few days or something like that. We have had people do that. So yeah, it actually is. It's not that bad at night. It cools down quite a bit, so it's good sleeping weather. But during the day, it's like so hot. Sometimes. This past summer, we actually had a lot more rain than we usually do, which is good because the summer before that, we had a big, huge forest fire that sort of went all around us, but didn't hit us. So we're so lucky. Okay. Any other questions? I love questions, so ask away. And I got all mine.
Just to have maybe top 3 fascinating things that stay memorable from your times or from somebody else's times in that region.
From Sunrise? Oh, just the sheer number of paleo points in one place is incredible. It's that's something you don't find anywhere else. Now we had quite a bit at the Galt site in Texas. That's a little bit different because that's a place where people lived like year round. There were people there all the time. And the reason we know this is because this is a very stratified site, and we have a lot of evidence. And these were even hunter-gatherer folks, so there was something keeping them there. Of course, they were at the conjoining of 2 ecotones, so they had resources all year round. They didn't have to move around a lot on the landscape like most people do if they're hunter-gatherers. Up here, as far as we know, again, we haven't found places where they stayed, but as far as we know, the main activity of this site is obtaining ochre. It was a resource location, right? It was a place where they were just getting the ochre, and maybe some of the church as well, especially the John Wood Church. But it doesn't appear that they're living there for any amount of time. They might be staying there long enough to get the stuff they needed and then take them off. But again, we don't know that for sure because we haven't found those sites yet. Yeah.
Do you have any thoughts on why you haven't found any newer artifacts?
The only thing that we can think of.
The red ochre was used throughout time.
Right. The only thing that we can think of again to explain that particular thing is that there was someplace else nearby that was easier to get to.
You just haven't found that site.
That's right. And hopefully it's not the one that was destroyed. we're keeping our fingers crossed that there are other ochre mines in that little area somewhere, because the iron deposits there are vast. So.
I haven't looked at banded iron. I haven't looked at banded iron formations, common in Wyoming, but in that area. But that's probably what you're seeing there.
I should have thrown in a picture of the actual glory hole walls because they're pretty pretty amazing. But you should come down and check it out if you haven't heard it. It's huge. That doesn't do it justice. Just to give you perspective, there's a tiny little dot right there, and that is the YMCA building. So this YMCA building was built in 1917. Like I said, it was the first one in Wyoming. And they had a bowling alley, they had a basketball court, they had all sorts of amenities for the people who lived there at the mine. So they built garages for them once the cars became available, because when they originally built the village, the houses were too close together to park a car next to them. So they built these perimeter garages. And one of them was so long, it had like 90-some garages in it on up the hillside. Pretty cool. Yeah.
How far is that from here?
About 9 minutes. Yeah, it's not too far. Yep, it's on the way to Manville. Yeah.
I was just looking at John Boyd Church and it came up with a picture of John Boyd.
That's because we call it John Boyd Church. It doesn't officially have a name yet.
But it keeps, ChatGPT knew about it.
Did it? Did it really?
And it said
Right.
sunrise, actually not sunrise, but powers too.
Powers too, yeah.
In that area.
Yeah.
Who is this guy, John Boyd?
He's the owner of Sunrise right now. Yeah.
It's not the actor.
Oh, not the actor. No. No. He's actually from Chugwater, Wyoming. And right now he, like I said, he does a little mining up there. He operated a restaurant, a saloon, I guess, in Chugwater for a while called the Stampede. And then he sold that. It's still out in operation, but that was his venture down there. And he's like a one-man show. He still plays one-man shows down there. He's got this little get-up where he's got a drum, and he's got little other instruments, and he's got a guitar, and he's got a harmonica, and he just sings and plays all these instruments and things. Yeah. Yeah, there's a lot of ancillary stuff that goes on at Sunrise that's kind of fun, actually. So there's Archaeology Plus.
I've seen some evidence, I think it was several decades ago, and I think it was Rock Springs at the petroglyphs. But the state of Wyoming, or the college, had been in there and had did some work and measurements and stuff like that. Do you and other colleges statewide have records of all of these places in the state?
The records are mainly kept at UW, but we have access to all of those. We have records of things that maybe we have done, right, and things that we've worked at and stuff like that. But the records are actually kept in UW.
You have access to SHPO?
Yes. Yeah, in fact, Damian Kirkwood, he's one of the guys who works there. He came up and did a program for our field school students because we have like a CRM focus, and he basically went over the laws and stuff like that and how the state works with the CRM and everything. So yeah, all the regulations and stuff like that. Yeah, we get a lot of people who are working in different places that come up and talk with the students and everything. So they get a lot of experience from Wyoming archaeologists in different aspects of archaeology, whether they're private or public. So, any other questions? If you guys know of any students who are wanting to get into archaeology, we have smaller class sizes, we have personalized experience, and we have actually getting out there and doing archaeology. So you get the experience before you go to your four-year school and kind of leg up. Right. We actually, like I said, we have 3 majors right now. We have a couple more that are coming in next year for high school students right now. So it's actually picking up pretty good. Any other questions? Anything?
When we're scrounging around, not picking up any artifacts, and we come across teepee rings and stuff, what do you look for besides just rocks in a circle?
TP rings are often associated with artifact distributions. Sometimes if your TP ring happens to be like in a field that's, overgrown and stuff like that, you're not gonna see any of that stuff, or you maybe see a few of those things. But some of the TP rings don't have much artifacts associated with them at all. So there are theories out there that say that some of them are actual TP rings and some of them are used for other purposes. Especially some of the ones up at Sutton. Some of the ones over in this area here are really, really big. And to imagine them putting a teepee on there, this teepee would have been like 100 feet high. But most teepee rings are, from me to you, boy, that's about how big they're. The ones up at Sutton, maybe more like that. So not quite 100 feet tall, but pretty big anyway. So. But again, generally, any kinds of tools you might find up there, you find hammerstones and things like that and places like that. So when we find stuff, generally we map it and usually leave it in place, unless there's something that's going to threaten the site. So.
What constitutes the schools, UW, Eastern College, what gets you to a site to actually do? Is there some kind of criteria that says there's enough information there that we want to go there and we excavate?
Not me. UW might do that, but I don't do that. No. No, I actually, for the golf school, we actually excavated the golf site until 2014. And after that, we went around looking to see if there were any other kinds of sites that were like the golf site. And so what we did was we actually had ranchers contact us, and anytime a rancher contacted us, we'd go out and take a look at their property for them. Because that's a way of building rapport with the ranchers. Down in Texas, I don't know about here, but down in Texas, we have a lot of ranchers who are like, I don't want any government people on my property. So we had to sort of, go in and show them that we're not gonna, steal their land or do anything or make them so they can't do something. We're just gonna show them what they have and how to work with that stuff and how to, if they want to preserve it, how to preserve it. If they want to get rid of it, how to have somebody come in and mitigate it for them if they want to. Most of the time they like to have it there, so we don't have any problem with that. A lot of times people will come in if they have a threat of a highway or something, a right of way coming across their land, and say, come out and find some archaeology so we can stop this thing. And we have to kind of explain, well, that's not exactly how it works, but we can go out and see what's out there for you. Because eventually people would have to pay to do that with CRM anyway.
There's no laws that protect archaeological sites that are in some place that's of significant value
There are.
beneath it.
Yeah, there are some laws that protect. There are a few federal ones, and some states have similar laws at the state level that also protect. But most of the federal laws are attached to federal funding. So if there's a project that's going to, I'm afraid to yell because then it's going to click on. But if there is a project that is using federal funds, they are required to do a cultural resource management survey. And then if there's something of significance, it goes up to the next level of survey, which is phase 2, which is kind of testing to see the extent of the site and if it's worthy of putting on a national register or something like that. And then if it is, then it goes to phase 3, where either they move what they're doing or they mitigate the whole thing. So those are the kinds of protections that are out there. So in many cases, developers, don't want to be the bad guys, and so they will be flexible with what they're doing there. So. But if it's something that's not federally funded, or in some cases state funded, they can do what they want, unfortunately. Private property laws are really strong here. So we try to educate folks and show the value of these places, but we can't make them do something with their property that they don't want to do. So it's just the way it works. Okay. And once we explain that sort of stuff to the ranchers, they're like, okay, well, maybe you can come out and just check it out. And then when they work with us, they realize that, oh, these folks aren't here to scare us or anything, so they're not gonna do anything to us. A lot of times we have, people who, neighbor ranchers, people who are neighbors of those ranchers, when we're doing a project out on the ranch, they'll come out and check us out. And at the end of our project, they'll come up and say, hey, I've got some things over here I want you to take a look at. And so, yeah, word of mouth is a big part of that. And I'm open to going wherever. So I've actually visited 3 or 4 ranches in the year and a half that I've been doing this up here, so. Yeah.
Have you ever been out of this country to go explore other prehistoric areas?
I take, eventually we'll be doing it here at UBC too, but we take students over to the UK to do Roman archaeology. So we work with some local archaeological societies there and set up little digs and stuff, and they give us what they call barbecues, but it's hamburgers and hot dogs. But they want to show us an American treat. By the way, did you know that hot dogs in the UK are sold in cans? I did not know that until I moved there for a little while, so, yeah.
My family in Colchester once.
Did you? Oh, yeah, that's a pretty awesome place. We were going to do a field school up there, not a field school, study abroad up at Colchester. Yeah, on the side up there. We did most of our work in the Surrey Hills. There was a villa site down there that we worked with. So that's where we did most of our work. And then we took the kids up to hike Hadrian's Wall. That's pretty awesome. So hopefully we'll be able to get that going for UWC as well. So if you are considering going to UWC for archaeology, potentially in the near future we'll have a study abroad project up there. So we'll see.
But
You gotta go to New Zealand first.
I wish I knew you came from Austin because there was a Texas Monthly article a few months ago about the Galt site.
Mhm.
And there's a guy who claims that it was a ceremonial site,
There were probably ceremonial aspects to it.
but he's gone against the archaeology establishment in Texas and really upset a lot of people. And
Oh, really?
he's really gone to the legislature and
Wow.
gotten people some notoriety that they don't want these days.
Yeah, that's kind of weird. Yeah. No, I mean, I was the field director there, and the area that we worked at was clearly not a ceremonial site.
Yeah.
But, I imagine there were ceremonial areas there. I mean, there's a lot of history there.
Yeah.
People were living there from the Clovis actually, I don't know if you guys have heard about the Bell site, but we have artifacts from about 14,000 years ago that are very controversial. But, and we have these little tiny projectile points that have been found nowhere else. But now people are looking at those to try to see if we can find other examples of that because they're below the Clovis levels. But anyway, from then all the way up to contact grade, I mean, we have petroglyphs that have churches on them. So this is the way to the mission. So we have a lot of Spanish missionaries down there. Okay, so yeah, I mean, there's so much history that there's got to be some kind of ceremonial stuff going on there, but the whole thing isn't one site purpose.
It was an interesting article. It was just like, who is this guy? And he has no training.
You have no idea who it would be. So.
Yeah.
No, maybe it's somebody who, because we used to open it up to people to dig, and we invite people like we do here from all over the world to come and dig, and locals to come and dig. And so it could be the person who got there for maybe a couple of days and decided he was an expert. Who knows? Who knows what it is? All right. Any other questions about Sunrise or? Oh, yeah. What I'll do is I'll kind of set them in the middle of the room. You guys can kind of mull around and take a look at some of this stuff. I don't have very many of the Sunrise points because they are currently in an exhibit that was made by one of our museology students at PwC. So we couldn't bring those with us. But here's a couple of them that she didn't use for her exhibit. We can pass those around and take a look. These are casts, so they're not the real thing. So, I mean, we don't want you to drop them, but if you drop them, we don't feel bad. And then I've also got some of the teaching collections. So like I said, I've worked in a lot of different places. We've got a collection of Southwest pottery that was donated to the school by a guy named Bruce Bradley. I don't know if you guys have ever heard of Bruce Bradley. He's an expert flint knapper. Probably notorious for the salute train hypothesis. But anyway, he donated a whole bunch of pottery for the students to work with. So there's some of that stuff here showing some of the stuff that's found in the area where I work with him called Wallace Great House. It's originally it was a place where people lived, and then it was a place where they buried people. So these are some of the artifacts that are found in the Midland area on that site. All of this stuff is obviously out of context. This is basically a garbage dump. But earlier on in his career, he would go out and map this stuff out until he realized that nobody's really interested in the mapping of the garbage sites and everything like that. And so he's retired now, and he's getting rid of some of those collections. And so we ended up having some for our teaching collections. These other ones are courtesy of the Royal Crown Estate. This was when Elizabeth was queen. We had to get a permit. They gave us a little plastic card, and I had a picture on it and everything. But these are from the Thames foreshore in London. And so we have garbage from Roman times all the way up to Victorian times. And we can use those as teaching collections as well for our students.
I accidentally mudlarked.
Accidentally?
I didn't know I was doing illegal because I just saw people down there.
Yeah.
So I walked down and started picking up stuff, so I got it in my yard.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting because technically you weren't mudlarking. There's a different type of permit, the type of permit that I got, and basically you can scrounge around if you get this thing, and it's really official. It's got your picture and everything on it. But you can go down and you can pick up stuff. I actually had to get permission from the London Museum of London Archaeology, which is the local official place, and the Port Authority to bring this stuff back here with me. But yeah, you can go down and pick up stuff and stuff like that. Museum of London used to do a program with our students where they'd go down and show them the different kinds of things. And our students would be like, "Can we keep this?" And he'd be like, "As long as I don't know about it." So.
Did you see the Roman wall in the parking garage?
Yeah. Yes.
That's a pretty interesting piece.
Yeah. They have a really cool museum, Bloomberg Museum, underneath the building that they built on top of the Mithras temple. So that's a pretty cool place to visit too. There's a lot of stuff underground underneath London. So yeah, it's a pretty cool place. But Wyoming is pretty cool too. People don't realize how much archaeology is here. In addition to paleontology and geology and all other good stuff. All the good ologies. Thanks for coming, guys.
Did you ever see that director guy in Utah that roams around